What is happening in the Reno Sparks real estate market this week? Stay tuned and I am going to tell you in this video. Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Sarah Sperber and I am a real estate agent here in Reno, Nevada. I'm so excited to give you some updates on what seems to be somewhat of a shifting market this week. So let's dive in. So these statistics are for the week that ended on April 16th. So if you're joining me at a later date, just have that frame of reference in your mind. So the median sales price was $549,500. Now this was down 8.3% from the previous week. The sold price per square foot also went down. It was at $326. That's a 3.3% decrease from the week before. The percentage of the list price received was 101.6%, and that is up 0.2% from the previous week. So not a huge change there. Days to contract was 6, and that was up from 5. So even though it was a 20% jump, it was really just 1 day. So average days on market till contract. So we're seeing a slight cooling here. Does this mean that the market is shifting? Well, I mean, theoretically, it means it already has shifted a little bit. I think that the interest rates going up is starting to have an impact, but we do need to keep in mind that the data that we get doesn't really happen in real time, right? There's kind of a delay. So these figures aren't even really reflecting what's happening right now, right? So we need to keep that in mind. I do believe that we are on the brink of a shift, and I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty of that in just a little bit. But I do want to say, while I can't predict the future, I do feel confident that the market isn't going to crash because the scarcity is real, right? So even though, interest rates are climbing, there may be less buyer demand, the value of homes isn't going to come barreling down like it did in previous markets because there's still far less homes than there are people who want to buy them. So that scarcity is going to hold the value strong for all of the people who already own property. So we need to keep in mind that even if it cools off slightly, for it to shift from a seller's market to a buyer's market is a huge jump because a balanced market where buyers and sellers have equal hands in the game, that's about a 6-month inventory online. And right now we have less than a month. So for all that catching up to occur is going to take some time. So I don't think we're going to cool off to the point of flipping the market. We may just be slowing down the strong sellers market that we're seeing right now. So when we think about real estate investing, we need to frame it more as a long-term investment strategy when the market is behaving the way that it is. Because, if it goes kind of up and down over the next year or two, or even up to 5 years, if you zoom out and you look at it as like a 10-year long investment, odds are pretty good. Of course, I'm not a psychic, but I believe that the return on your investment will still be strong. The trajectory is still going to be an increase in value. So let's look at history as a frame of reference, right? So in 2006, that was about the peak market before everything started crashing in 07, 08, around that time. And so people who got in at that time bought high and then it crashed. So all of that value was lost. But now, I mean, if you look at it 2020 to, anything around the 10-year mark after that time, it was still such a huge return on investment. So you really can't think about your investment as something that's short term. That's not to say that it wasn't detrimental, and I don't take that lightly. I know, the crash in 08 really destroyed a lot of people's lives. People were like committing suicide over this. I mean, it wasn't something that can just be brushed off. But the people who were able to hold on to those investments, they were able to realize quite a return. So to the buyers out there, I think, when you say, is the market going to crash? What I'm really hearing is, if I make this investment right now, am I going to lose my shirt? Am I going to lose my home? Am I going to put my family in jeopardy? And so I guess my response to all of that is, I don't know if the market's going to crash. Do I think it will? I don't think it will. I think that the rate at which buyer demand is occurring is going to slow down. But I think the question in response to your question is more so, how long do you plan on holding on to your investment? Do you plan on trying to get in and then sell and get right back out, because in that case, yeah, maybe this isn't the time for you to buy. But if you are seeking an investment that you're going to sit on for the next, 7, 8, 9, 10 or more years, then this is probably a very secure way to invest your money. Let's look at some of the reasons why interest rates are rising so that you can understand that. And then maybe I can also give you some ideas of how to navigate through those waters. So the first reason why interest rates are starting to rise is because the economy has changed, right? We are kind of on the tail end, I'm gonna knock on wood, tail end of this whole pandemic situation. And in 2020, when everything shut down, that caused a huge crash in the economy because everyone was unemployed. Nobody was going to work, right? So now we're kind of recovering from that. So that's the first reason, is that the economy is starting to bounce back. So the second reason why interest rates are starting to climb is because of inflation. So as of January, we saw the highest jump in the consumer price index since 1982. It jumped 7.5%. Another reason why mortgage rates are rising is because the Federal Reserve is raising their interest rates. The Fed is also slowing its pace of purchases of mortgage-backed securities. So that's also going to create some upward pressure on interest rates to the consumer. And lastly, the 10-year Treasury yield has risen sharply. So back in 2020, when everything crashed, this dropped below 1%, and now it's back up. So this is also contributing to the increase in mortgage interest rates that we are seeing. Really, all of these things are speaking to the economy bouncing back. So during COVID, as I mentioned before, and as we all experienced, people were out of work. Unemployment rates were through the roof, and now we're recovering from that. So all of these things, including inflation, are driving the rates up, and these are all contributing factors. Next, we are going to talk about some things that you can do if you are still interested in purchasing property in this climate. My first word of advice is to shop around. So all mortgage officers and companies have different rates, they have different products, they have different ways to solve different puzzles. So shop around. I have personally a ton of great lenders in my network, and if you need advice on who to connect with, I can give you a list of tons of people in our area who do this, who are wonderful at what they do. The second thing that you personally can do is to keep your credit score high. So make sure you're paying all your bills on time. Make sure you're not plummeting into debt, because credit is, there are a lot of factors, but credit is the single most important factor that is looked at when you are given a mortgage to pay for a home. Another thing that you can consider doing is to talk to your lender or any one of your lenders that you're considering about points. So with points, you actually pay a fee up front when you get the loan to reduce the interest rate. So this is another great tool that you can use to kind of combat this rising interest rate situation. I would also advise you to make sure that you're locked into a fixed rate mortgage. That means that your interest rate isn't going to change, because you don't want to get into an adjustable rate mortgage, or an ARM as they're called. You just want to know what you're paying for up front. So make sure that you talk to your lender and clarify that up front. Lastly, my advice to you is don't bank on a housing correction. Don't wait for the market to crash, because it's not going to. I mean, I don't think it's going to. I think that this is all a means to slow it down so that buyer demand is kind of slowed down enough so that everything can catch up to itself. But because the scarcity is so real and the demand is so high, I believe that pricing is going to still continue to climb, because that's just how it works with supply and demand. This is basic economics. What do you guys think? Do you think things are going to keep rising as far as pricing? Do you think that mortgage rates are going to keep going up? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear what you all have to say. If you are wondering what a home purchase or sale may look like for you at some point in the next year, please go ahead and book a call with me. I'm going to leave the link to my Calendly app in the description box below. It will be no pressure. It's totally free. It's literally just a time that I can meet with you on the phone and find out what questions you might have and help you figure out what your best and next steps might be. So go ahead and do that. And don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe button below, and I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me.